23-year-old Ethan Miller pushed open the back door of Tony's Pizza Shack as the sun dipped into the horizon, casting long amber streaks across the quiet suburban streets. He balanced a stack of hot pizza boxes against his chest, the heat warming his jacket as he walked toward his beat-up delivery scooter parked beside the dumpster. Ethan didn't look like someone who had graduated high school 5 years ago. He looked older, worn down by responsibility, shaped by long nights and early mornings. He wore a dark gray hoodie with frayed cuffs, a pair of old cargo pants with pockets that sagged from carrying too many delivery slips, and work shoes that had survived more miles than any scooter on the lot. His coworkers joked that Ethan was 23 going on 40, but he didn't mind. He had bills to pay, a mother recovering from surgery, and a little brother still in college who needed every extra dollar Ethan could spare. As he started his scooter, the engine coughed twice before settling into a shaky hum, and he sighed, hoping it would survive just one more shift. The road to Maple Ridge Estates was quiet that evening, and he calculated how quickly he could reach the wealthy neighborhood, deliver the order, and rush back before the dinner rush peaked. Rich neighborhoods usually meant big tips, and tonight he really needed one. The cold breeze brushed across his face as he drove, carrying the scent of pine trees and distant highway fumes. But halfway across the lonely stretch near Pine Creek Bridge, Ethan suddenly hit the brakes hard. A faint, trembling groan drifted through the dimming light, a sound too human to ignore. He turned the scooter around slowly, shining the small headlamp along the edge of the road, and his heart clenched when he saw an elderly man lying in the grass, curled slightly, gripping his side in pain. His coat was expensive but dirt-stained, his shoes scuffed, and his silver hair matted against his forehead as though he had fallen hard. For a full second Ethan just sat there, torn, because he knew exactly what would happen if he delayed the delivery. His boss would scold him, the customer would complain, and he'd likely lose the tip he desperately needed. But the man's labored breathing and weak attempts to lift his head made the decision for him. Ethan set the pizza boxes safely on the ground, rushed to the stranger, and knelt beside him. The old man's clothes, the gold watch strapped to his wrist, the polished ring on his finger, all signs of wealth, looked strangely out of place on someone abandoned on a cold roadside. Ethan pulled off his hoodie without hesitation, folded it, and placed it gently under the man's head, trying to soothe him with calm words even as fear tightened his own stomach. His phone flickered with almost no signal, leaving him helpless except for his own strength. So he lifted the man slowly, supporting him with both arms, step by careful step toward the main road where he hoped someone might pass by. The pizzas, the delivery, the fear of losing money, all of it melted away. All Ethan cared about now was getting this stranger to safety, and although he didn't know it yet, this single act of compassion was about to pull him into a night that would change his entire future in ways he could never have imagined. Ethan half carried, half supported the old man toward the brighter part of the road, moving slowly but steadily, his muscles straining under the man's weight and his mind racing with worry. Every few steps, the man let out a soft groan, and Ethan would pause, adjust his grip, and whisper, "Hang in there, sir, I'm right here." The night air grew colder as the sun finally dipped away, leaving the world dim and quiet, except for the faint buzz of street lamps and the distant hum of cars from the highway. After what felt like an endless walk, Ethan finally reached a spot where his phone caught a weak signal. With shaky fingers, he dialed 911, explaining everything to the operator while trying not to panic as the man's breathing grew shallower. "Help is on the way," the operator assured him, but dispatch time in that quiet area always took longer than he liked. Ethan sat beside the injured man, using his own body heat to warm him, gently rubbing the man's shoulder to keep him conscious. The man tried to speak, his voice raspy and barely audible. "Son, don't leave me." Ethan shook his head quickly. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. "You're safe." As they waited, the old man's trembling hand reached out and gripped Ethan's sleeve, surprising him with unexpected strength. His eyes, pale, scared but full of something deeper, studied Ethan as if searching for something. "You didn't have to stop," he whispered. "Most wouldn't." Ethan shrugged gently, trying to lighten the moment though fear still hollowed his stomach. "Well, I'm not most people." The man almost smiled, but pain cut it short. Minutes stretched painfully slow until finally, the faint wail of an ambulance siren crept toward them. Relief washed over Ethan, but he stayed focused, still holding the man upright. When the ambulance arrived, 2 paramedics rushed over, immediately checking the man's pulse, asking questions, and stabilizing him on a stretcher. "Good job calling us," one paramedic told Ethan. "If he stayed out here much longer, it could have gotten bad." The compliment eased Ethan's nerves for a moment, but when they lifted the man into the ambulance, the old man grabbed Ethan's wrist with surprising urgency. "Come with me?" he gasped. Ethan blinked confused. "Sir, I have to get back to work, Please," the old man insisted, gripping tighter. "Don't leave me alone. I don't trust anyone else right now." Something in the man's voice, fear mixed with desperation, hit Ethan straight in the chest. Against his original plans, against his worries about losing his job, he climbed into the ambulance and sat beside the man as the doors closed behind him. The paramedics exchanged a quick glance but said nothing. They'd seen stranger things. During the ride, the man tried to speak again, but the paramedics encouraged him to rest. Ethan sat quietly, staring at the monitors, feeling both scared and strangely protective of the stranger. When they arrived at the hospital, doctors rushed in, wheeling the man through double doors while Ethan stood there, unsure if he should stay or slip away. But just before disappearing behind the curtains, the man turned his head weakly toward Ethan and whispered something that made Ethan's heart jump. "Don't leave. I'll explain everything. You deserve to know." Then he vanished behind the emergency room doors, leaving Ethan in a quiet hallway, stunned and shivering, unaware that he had just stepped into the life of a man whose secrets reached far beyond anything he imagined, and whose gratitude would soon change everything about Ethan's future. Ethan stood in the cold hospital hallway, unsure of what to do with his hands or his thoughts as nurses rushed past him pushing carts, calling out instructions, and disappearing behind curtains with purposeful urgency. The bright fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above him, contrasting sharply with the quiet, dim roadside where everything had begun only an hour earlier. He checked the time on his phone, missed calls from his boss, messages demanding to know where he was, and one warning that the customer had already complained about the late delivery. He swallowed hard, realizing he might already be fired, but something inside him refused to walk away. The old man had asked him to stay, and Ethan felt a strange responsibility he couldn't fully explain. So he found a small plastic chair in the waiting area and sat down, the exhaustion of the night spreading through his muscles like a slow wave. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour, and just when he thought he might have been forgotten, a nurse approached him. "You're the young man who brought Mr. Hartman in?" she asked gently. Ethan nodded. "He's stable now. Very lucky you found him when you did." The name hit Ethan unexpectedly. Hartman, a name he had heard before, but he couldn't place exactly where. "Can I see him?" Ethan asked. "He asked for you," the nurse replied, surprising him. She led him down the hall to a private room where the old man now lay connected to an IV, his breathing steadier, his color slowly returning. When he saw Ethan step inside, a weak but warm smile formed on his face. "I'm glad you stayed," the old man whispered. Ethan pulled a chair close and sat beside him, unsure how to begin. Before he could speak, the man said, "My name is Walter Hartman." The name rang loudly this time. Hartman Holdings, Hartman Real Estate Group, Hartman Technology. Ethan had grown up hearing that name on the news, in magazines, in conversations about the richest people in the state. "You're that Hartman?" Ethan asked, quietly stunned. Walter nodded slowly. "I was on my way out of the city when someone in my own family arranged for me to be taken." Ethan frowned. "You mean someone hurt you?" Walter closed his eyes briefly, gathering strength before continuing. "My relatives want control of my assets. They've been trying to declare me mentally unfit, so they can take everything I built. Tonight, I overheard their plan. I tried to leave quietly, but they caught me. I fought back. They pushed me from the car, thinking I wouldn't get up." Ethan felt a chill crawl across his skin, the weight of the situation suddenly clearer and far darker. "You could have died out there," Ethan said. "I would have," Walter replied, opening his eyes again. "If you hadn't chosen to stop." Ethan shifted awkwardly, not knowing how to respond to a billionaire thanking a pizza delivery guy who couldn't even afford a new pair of shoes. Walter studied him for a long moment, his gaze sharp and thoughtful despite his weakness. "I need someone I can trust," he said at last. "Someone who didn't help me because of my name. Because you didn't know it." Ethan shook his head. "Sir, I was just doing what anyone should do." Walter smiled faintly. "No, most people wouldn't. You risked your job, your income, your night, just to help a stranger. That's rare." The room fell silent except for the soft beep of the heart monitor. Then Walter whispered, almost as if testing the words, If you stay, if you help me through what's coming next, your life will change more than you can imagine." Ethan froze, not understanding what that meant, but sensing that whatever came next would pull him deeper into a world far more complicated than pizza deliveries and late night shifts. And yet, for reasons he couldn't fully explain, he felt himself silently nodding, unaware that this decision would alter the entire course of his future. Night deepened outside the hospital windows as Ethan settled into the chair beside Walter's bed, trying to make sense of everything he had just heard. The reality of the situation felt surreal, almost like stepping into a movie he wasn't prepared to act in. Walter rested for several minutes, regaining strength before speaking again. "Ethan, I need your help with something important," he said quietly, his voice steadying. Ethan leaned forward. "What kind of help?" Walter turned his head slightly to look at him. "My relatives have access to my security staff. They've twisted employees against me. I don't know who's loyal anymore." Ethan blinked. "Sir, I'm just a delivery guy. I don't know anything about dealing with dangerous family members." Walter smiled weakly. "You're exactly what I need. Someone they don't know. Someone who can move quietly. Someone who won't betray me for money or power." Ethan rubbed a hand across his face, the fatigue of the day catching up with him. "Mr. Hartman, I don't want to get in the middle of a family fight." Walter's eyes sharpened. "This isn't a fight. It's survival." Ethan stared at the floor, torn. He thought of his mother, who depended on him. His brother, who needed tuition money. His job, which he might have already lost. Then he looked up and saw something in Walter's expression, fear mixed with hope. The hope that Ethan might be the one person in the world who wouldn't hurt him. "What do you want me to do?" Ethan finally asked. Walter nodded, slowly, relieved. "Tomorrow morning, before my relatives find out I'm alive, I need you to go to my estate. There's a safe in my study. Inside is a folder with proof of everything they've been planning. If they get it first, I won't have a chance." Ethan swallowed nervously. "Your estate? I don't think they'll just let me walk in." Walter shook his head. "I'll arrange it. I'll call the staff before sunrise and give them your name. But you have to go early. Once my relatives wake up, they'll start making moves." Ethan leaned back, overwhelmed. One moment he had been delivering pizzas. Now he was being asked to retrieve evidence from a billionaire's home before greedy relatives could seize it. "Why me?" Ethan asked again, almost whispering. Walter's answer was so soft it felt like it carried more weight than the room could hold. "Because when I was lying on that cold road, the only person in the world who refused to leave me behind was you." Ethan sat there in silence, realizing that kindness, something he had given without expecting anything in return, had pulled him into something far bigger than he ever imagined. And though fear tugged at him, curiosity and a strange sense of responsibility tugged even harder. He didn't know it yet, but the next morning would push him into a world of gates, guards, secrets, and decisions that would define not just the old man's future but his own. Ethan barely slept that night, dozing off in the stiff hospital chair, only to wake every few minutes with his mind racing through everything Walter had told him. By the time the first hint of dawn crept through the blinds, his stomach was tight with nerves, and his thoughts tangled between fear and determination. Walter stirred awake as the early light softened the room, and when he saw Ethan still there, he gave a slow nod of approval. "You should go now?" Walter said, his voice stronger than the night before. "Before they know I'm alive." Ethan stood, adjusting his wrinkled hoodie, realizing that the same clothes he had worn to deliver pizzas were now the clothes he would wear into a billionaire's estate. Walter quietly recited the code to the study, described the safe's location behind a shelf of old books, and explained exactly what the folder looked like: a thick, navy blue file containing signatures, forged documents, audio transcripts, and emails that proved his relatives were plotting to take everything he owned. "Once you take it," Walter instructed, "don't speak to anyone until you bring it straight back here." Ethan nodded, committing every detail to memory. Before he left, Walter reached out, placing a trembling but firm hand on Ethan's wrist. "No matter what you find there, don't be afraid. You're doing the right thing." Ethan swallowed, nodding again, though his heartbeat pounded like a drum. Then he stepped out of the room, down the hallway, and through the sliding doors into the crisp early morning air. Instead of heading home or to work, he drove his old scooter toward the wealthiest part of town, toward Hartman Estate, a place he had only ever seen on the news. When he reached the gates, 2 guards approached him immediately, eyeing his cheap scooter, worn clothes, and tired face with deep suspicion. "Delivery?" one of them asked bluntly. Ethan shook his head. "No. Mr. Hartman is in the hospital. He told me you'd be expecting me." The guards exchanged a glance, then one stepped aside to answer a ringing phone. After a moment, his posture changed. He straightened, nodded, then walked back. "You may enter," he said reluctantly. As the gates slowly opened, Ethan drove inside, feeling a wave of disbelief wash over him. The driveway wound past fountains, gardens trimmed with impossible precision, and a mansion so large it made his apartment feel like a closet. Inside, a nervous housekeeper led him to the study and closed the door behind him, leaving him alone in a room filled with polished wood, shelves of books, and a faint smell of old leather. Ethan found the bookshelf Walter had described and gently pulled it forward, revealing the steel safe behind it. His hands trembled as he entered the code. For a second, he feared he would mess it up, or that the safe wouldn't open. But then a soft click broke the silence, and the heavy door swung wide. Inside, sitting exactly where Walter had said, was the navy blue folder that held the truth behind an entire family's betrayal. Ethan reached for it carefully, knowing that this moment, this one simple action, was the bridge between the life he had always known and the life he had never imagined. He didn't yet understand how much the folder would change everything, how it would tear open secrets, expose lies, and bring him face to face with people who would do anything to stop him. But as he stood in the heart of a billionaire's mansion, clutching evidence that could shift the balance of power, one thing became clear: the night he stopped to help a stranger had led him to a turning point in his life, and the reward, whatever it would be, would reshape his future forever.